country 2 times in the past because of the coronavirus situation. So if you are somebody who is looking to enter into Canada to be with your family, or are just interested in the US-Canada border regulations because of the pandemic situation, I may have a little experience to share because I just traveled from Boston, USA to Ottawa, Canada yesterday. So if you're interested, please keep watching. So I will start by saying that the rules or guidelines for who can and cannot enter into Canada are not very clear. There is so much room for interpretation, and that is why everybody, including the government officials here in Canada and in US, are interpreting these rules differently. So just to give you a brief history, Canada closed its borders for all foreign nationals in March, and since then the rule is getting extended, or the ban is getting extended every month. I guess the latest announcement has it banned until the end of September, with a high possibility of more extensions. And there are exceptions to this ban, allowing people to enter into Canada, and the people who can actually come in and out of Canada are Canadian citizens or permanent residents, people who have Canadian job offer, valid work permit or a study permit, and the third category is to reunite with an immediate family member who is in Canada. Now it's the third category where the confusion starts. So if you go to the IRCC website, it has two links. One, to reunite with a immediate family member who is a Canadian citizen or permanent resident holder. And the second category is to reunite with an immediate family member who is in Canada temporarily. So if you click on the temporarily link, it clearly states, and I mean not very clearly, but it states that people traveling from any other country except for US to reunite with a family member or an immediate family member in Canada who is here temporarily has to get a written authorization. And they have also given an email address where you can email to get your written authorization. And I personally know a few people who traveled from India to Canada with a written authorization from IRCC. So you would think that for people traveling from the US to Canada, it's pretty easy because they don't even need the written authorization, right? That's how I read and interpreted the rules. So I booked my Air Canada flight from Boston to Montreal, packed my bags, and reached the airport. At the airport, the Air Canada staff didn't take me in. And the reason they said was because I am not a Canadian citizen or a permanent resident holder. I tried explaining them everything, and I tried showing them the rules on IRCC, but they didn't listen. So I was left with no options, and I had to come back home. After coming back home, I did a little research, and I finally decided to kind of write an email to IRCC explaining my whole situation, that even though I'm traveling from US, the airline needs a written authorization. So can you please give me a written authorization so that I can travel? I received a response from IRCC in 2 weeks, and it clearly states that as somebody traveling from the US, you do not need a written authorization. So this time, I again booked an Air Canada flight, reached airport with printouts of everything, and in my head I was thinking that okay, this time you have to let me in. To my surprise, they asked me if I am a Canadian citizen or a permanent resident holder, and I said no. So the second question they asked was, do I have an immediate family member in Canada who is a Canadian citizen or a PR holder? I was like, no. And then they said, okay, then we cannot let you in. And I cannot tell you how furious I was. This time I was not sad, I was angry. And again, I showed them the printout and everything, and they were like, I'm so sorry, we cannot do anything about the situation. So people who know me personally, they know how difficult it is for me to take no for an answer. So after not fighting, but after explaining a lot to them, one person said, okay, you know what, let me call the CBSA official. So CBSA is Canadian Border Service Agents or Agency. So she called CBSA and she explained everything to them on phone in front of me. And she was probably on the phone for like 2 minutes, and then she disconnected and said, like I told you, they are saying that, you know, because you do not have a permanent status in Canada, you cannot travel. My frustration level was here. But you can only do so much, right? And you also have to behave, especially with immigration people in a foreign country. So I came back home, but I just couldn't wrap my head around the inconsistency. So I researched, and I found a Facebook page where people were asking the same questions and CBSA was replying to them. So I also posted my question, and I got a reply that because the rule only applies, or the exemption only applies to Canadian citizens, I cannot travel. When I replied to that comment and I pointed them to IRCC website where it says that I am eligible to travel, I got no response. So the frustration level was over the roof. So one fine day, I actually decided to call CBSA, and I'm so glad I did that. One super nice gentleman, he picked up my call, he listened to my whole story patiently, and he was like, I just don't understand why Air Canada didn't let you travel, because you can absolutely travel if you have to meet or if you have to reunite with your immediate family member in Canada, regardless of his status in Canada. And I got a little hope, so I asked him for a solution. So actually he suggested me to drive to Canada instead of flying, because then I will only be dealing with Canadian Border Services and not Air Canada staff, US Immigration and Canada Immigration. Sounds like a nice idea. And also the drive from Boston to Canada is not that bad, because you drive from Boston to New Hampshire to Vermont, which then connects you to Quebec, and it's Highgate Spring border services. So I decided to do that, and 2 days before my travel, I decided to again give a call to CBSA to just confirm, right? Because I was planning on driving for 6-7 hours, and if they will not let me in, I would have to drive back again, which would be just too much. So I called. This CBSA person listened to my story and was like, sorry, you cannot travel because you do not have that status. And he literally hung up on me. So I was like super annoyed. But I was also too stubborn to give up. So just to cut the long story short, I actually called CBSA 10 times. 5 times I got a yes, and 5 times I was told that I cannot travel. So it was just super annoying and confusing. But one day this really nice lady picked my call, and she again listened to my whole story very patiently. And I even told her that, I have called CBSA 10 times and every time I'm getting a different answer. So she then told me that, I am reading a guidance in the system, and according to that guidance, you can absolutely travel. So I asked her if she can share that guidance document with me, so that in case I get into a trouble with CBSA persons at the border, I can show them that. So she said that, because it's an internal document, I cannot share it, but she actually gave me the reference number. So it is Annexure B, Discretionary Entry for Foreign Nationals into Canada, written April 10th and updated August 14th. So she was like, if you will point them towards this annexure, they'll be able to read it. So because it's in our system. So then I felt a little confident and positive, and that was my last call to CBSA. I was like, I'm not gonna call anymore. So fast forward to my day of travel. So I left Boston around 11 a.m., 11:30, and I crossed New Hampshire, Vermont, and finally reached the Highgate Springs border at around 4:30. So anybody traveling from Highgate Spring border, please keep in mind that it's not walkable like the Rainbow Bridge in New York, because that's where I got confused. I thought I could be able to walk, but there's this straight road that will lead you into Canada. So there is no allotted parking where you can drop your taxi or drop your Uber. That is not possible. There is an American duty-free shop where you can get down, but that will be a really long walk, especially if you would have any kind of luggage with you. So I reached the border, and this Canadian immigration person asked me my reason of travel, what all stuff I have in my car, and how much cash I'm carrying. And by this time I was studying in my car. So I answered all the questions, and then he opened the gates, and I was like, what, that's it? Is he allowing me to Canada? But then he said, give me your passport and park your car there and come into the office. Pretty intimidating. But I did as he said. I parked my car, I went into the office, and good news, I was in Canada, but I think I still had to convince the immigration officer to stamp my passport, because he still holds the right to deny me entry and send me back to the US. So he asked me to wait, and then I think it was probably, I waited for 30 minutes before they called me at the counter, asked me the same questions again, and this time in a little bit detail, and then asked me to wait again. So then he came back again after, I guess, 40-45 minutes with my passport, and then he asked me what is my quarantine plan and my address and phone number where they can contact me in next 14 days. So I thought that, okay, maybe if they're asking me about all these things, then they are letting me in. And I was right. He stamped my passport, and he said you have to do a mandatory quarantine for next 14 days or 2 weeks, and we can reach out to you anytime to check if you are at home or not. And then he just smiled and said, welcome to Canada. What a relief. So I guess the moral of the story there is, if I wouldn't have done my research and tried, I wouldn't have been able to come into Canada. And the reason why I made this video is just to help those people who may be in the same situation that I was, because I can totally understand the frustration. And this is not the time when you can live away from your family members. So thank you so much for watching, and now because I'm in Canada, I will be doing my mandatory quarantine for 14 days, and I am planning on doing a video on that as well. So if you are interested, please subscribe so that you don't miss it, and stay safe.